You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. Do you know what's going on in the wild world of volatility? Well, let's find out together, shall we? It is time once again for Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the optionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you folks are binging and continues to grow. 17 and a half years in, 17 and 3/4 now. Still growing. The futures run down, getting new listeners all the time, which we love to see. New people discovering not just the world of options, but indeed the network as a result. So if you're not listening to the full network, and I know there's a dedicated Vol Views audience out there, and we love you. You get the show however you want. You do you at the end of the day. But if you're not listening to the full network, then you're missing out on a whole bunch of other awesome stuff, including the newest edition, the Futures Rundown. So wherever you're listening to this, make sure you check out the full network feed. It's available everywhere. You can always get everything all the time on our website and on our mobile app as well. Two great places to go to check on something if you missed something. And then, of course, if you want to come back after Vol Views, you want some unusual activity goodness in your life. You want awesome pro Q&As like we did earlier this week with that deadbeat Uncle Mike. I'm just kidding. He knows why we say that. Only one place to go. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. Congratulations to Tyler, our pro member this week, who won the September Pro Trading Crate. Get your name in the hat for October. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. The place to go to learn more as we learn who's joining us on the old Volatility Views program this week. First, to the Southern Volatility Mecca we go, where we are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to Vol Views, sir.
Hey, Mark, good to be here. Quite the day here today. Lots to talk about, and I'm excited to do so.
Glad you are excited. We are excited as well, as we also expand our volatility net to catch one Dr. VIX moonlighting as more than moonlighting these days. We'll get to that in a second, as Dr. VSTOXX as well. Mr. Russell Rhoads, when he's not doing that, he's holding court over there at the Kelley School of Business. Mr. Rhoads, welcome back to the program to you as well, sir.
Well, and I'm always thrilled to be here. I got to let you know, were your ears burning yesterday as I had a bunch of young minds in my office? I was talking about you.
They were. I could feel someone cursing me out as they spoke.
No, it wasn't that. We're CME does a college trading contest in October every year. It kicks off when the market opens Sunday night. And I told them that the futures and the and TWIFO are must listens for the team.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's like, well, how do we decide what to trade? I said, I don't care. It's more about learning how trading works at this point. But you got to listen to this guy. And showed him who I was talking about and everything. And then after that, you guys asked me to be on TWIFO next week. Woohoo!
Getting the kids luring them to the dark side with the gateway drug that is futures, I see, sir. Interesting.
Absolutely.
All the kids
Screw
love
this
futures.
crypto stuff. One kid quit the team because he couldn't trade crypto.
Oh.
He wanted to trade the Dodgy coin. I said, that doesn't trade CME Group.
He's like, I'm Doge or I'm out, is what he said.
Oh, yeah. I go, I want to trade Doge because we were separating everything up. He goes, well, I want Dogecoin. I said, are you kidding with me? All right. And I didn't say that out loud before they get on to me in the chat. I did not drop that F-bomb.
He comes in and he wrecks everybody in the trading guide as we keep on rolling. And we go out to the volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Volatility Review, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is going on from a vol trading and trending analysis, unusual activity, all sorts of fun perspectives. And as we're kicking off the show, it seems like we are back firmly in the green. Vol coming back to its senses maybe a little bit out here. Maybe not. Maybe you want vol to be a little bit juicier out there. But we did bounce off the 5,700 level. Looks like close to a couple of times out there today. We've been doing a lot of whipsawing this week, and today, no exception. But as we're kicking off the show, S&P up about 0.5%. NASDAQ up about 0.8%. Dow up about 0.4%. And VIX hanging out right around the 19 handle as we kicked off the show. Puts it up still from last week, up a little over 3, about 3.1 points on the week. So vol still frothy. A lot of that driven by our jobs number this morning. If you listen to our advisors option show earlier this week, I was talking with Mr. Matt from Rhoads, and he was saying, they were crunching the numbers for the election. And as they were doing that, they were surprised to see just how much juice was being baked into this week's and today's jobs number. It was really kind of beyond what you typically see. So there was a lot of attention on this number, and it came in today. I think, spoiler alert, white hot is the number. The labor market is on fire. 254,000 jobs versus expectations for 140,000. So the labor market white hot. So yeah, we definitely need some stimulus to stimulate this. Let's go another half point, Fed. Gotta cut the rates to keep this labor market from imploding. But my goodness, wow, over 250,000 jobs, crazy town. Now you might be saying, well, now are we in this range where is good news bad news? Because now the Fed's not going to cut a half point again, or whatever the case may be. Apparently not. Apparently we're in the good news is good, all is right with the world part of the market. At least we are for right now. If you don't like it, just wait 5 minutes, because we all know what these markets are prone to out there these days. But yeah, just a completely white hot. No, I don't think anybody had anything that hot today. Again, proving why they call it the dismal science at the end of the day, listeners. Economists they can't estimate to save their lives. VVIX still looking frothy as we're kicking off the show. 112 up 19 points from this time last week. I'm sure if I re-racked that now, given that we're a little bit lower, about 110. So still pretty frothy from where it was this time a week ago. Let's go around the horn the way we started. Let's go out to the Southern Volatility Mecca. Mr. Meatball, I think if you could, encapsulate this week in one term, it would be whipsaw-y to make up a term. What's catching your eye out there this week, sir?
Yeah, every day has been a lot of whipsaw, a lot of movement. What's been crazy is the absolute destruction of actual movement on a realized basis from where we've been, coinciding with the VIX itself going straight up. I was looking at SPX and looking at standard Garch modeling. The last 10 days, realized volatility is down to 6.42%. And over the last 20, it's down to 11.7%. And yet here we sit with a 19% VIX. Shows you where sometimes realized vol and implied vol don't always mesh up. And the reason being, obviously, I think the baseline VIX with the presidential election is somewhere between, 6, and would love your input on this, Russell and Mark as well. I think it's, 16-ish with just the election. But this Middle East potential war and, will they or won't they blow up the oil fields is holding vol at 19. Now, it's probably a really good short, but if it's not a really good short, VIX is going to be 35, and it's going to be a really, 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 really bad short. And that's kind of what we're seeing. It's been interesting that this has been a really soft week for Apple, in Apple terms, and a really strong week for the energy complex. We've seen oil and oil vol go straight up, and then the other area where vol has gone up with a lot of movement has been in Asia, where we're looking at, the FXI index at a 1 year high by a wide margin, a 2-year high by a decent margin. And you basically have to go back to January of 2022 to get back where we were in terms of the current pricing in FXI. So there is volatility out there. It just is not in the S&P. And that's kind of what's kind of caught my eye in terms of vol markets.
All right, let's keep going out to the land where he is corrupting young minds with talk of futures. Mr. Rhoads, sir, what was catching your eye in the vol market in this apparently white-hot labor market these days, sir?
I don't know if anybody's ever done this, but I would love to see like the last 10 days realized vol versus where VIX is right now. Put VIX as the numerator and the last couple of weeks as the denominator. And I'll bet you that ratio would be pretty high relative to what we're used to seeing. But I think that would be typical of a wait and see type of market. And we've kind of been in a wait and see mode ever since we got the FOMC, or ever since we got the rate cut through really probably this employment number. This is our first nice look back at what happened in September. I also think that there was, I know from looking at the weekly trades that most people expected a volatility crush today, which they're probably pretty upset about, because I've got put buyers that bought the puts that expire next week, and they are not looking good on these trades, which is just unfortunate. And I think it's they're being held up here, and they're being held up by every night, and the overnight stuff is prime time for us. You're seeing live feed of people blowing each other up, and so far it hasn't spread. But if it does start to spread to really taking people out, and I think because apparently, and I hate to deviate in the politics, but just for a second, I think Biden said that he had told Israel not to touch touch Iran's nuclear program. Well, I don't remember him saying anything about don't touch their oil. So I like that point that Mark Sebastian just made about are they going to blow up the oil fields? We saw one crazy guy back in the 90s blow up all of his own oil fields. A lot of you children out there probably don't remember this, but when we had the first Iraq War, Saddam Hussein blew up all of his oil wells. And for better or worse, it was one of the most apocalyptic looking things you've ever seen in your life. Wouldn't be surprised if we do something along those lines as well, or at least try to impede Iran's ability to make money.
Talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face. If Israel did that, I mean, my goodness, that would be an unpopular move, I think, to put it mildly out there. Interesting stuff out there. By the way, I didn't mention at the top of the show, we also have the resolution of this port strike. People were thinking this might spill over weeks, maybe even months, and really hit the economy. It's resolved after just a few days, so that's obviously playing into a little bit of the green we're seeing out there on the screen again today. No one wanted another repeat of the early days of the pandemic and container ships were backed up for miles. Nobody wanted that noise, so at least that's one good sign out there. But yeah, still vol not coming off perhaps as aggressively as you might have hoped, and certainly a lot of those put buyers Russell's going to break down in a bit. Probably not as much as they were hoping as well. Let's get out to the land of the VIX futures. Let's see what's cooking out there on the vol surface this week, shall we, listeners? And kicking off the show, spoiler alert, we are a little bit higher than we were this time a week ago. The OCC future, as we kicked off the show, is up about exactly 2 points from where it was this time a week ago, right around a 20.5. And the no future is up almost exactly 1.5 points, about 1.45 points, hanging out at about a 1945 out there. So intriguing stuff across the board. Our entire term structure looking pretty firm. Intriguingly enough, if you go all the way out to June of next year, the only 20 handle is actually in the OCK future. So yeah, intriguing stuff out here across the board on the vol surface. Let's go out to the Southern Volatility Mecca. Mr. Meatball, sir, what is catching your eye on the vol surface this week?
Yeah, well, we're in the futures continue to be in backwardation. The VIX was well above most of the futures sans October as at the close yesterday, but as you know, with this precipitous dive, is now trading below the entire curve. But the curve has that kind of Big Dipper form shape, but the VIX is trading underneath it, which is kind of interesting. I think if we do get a little bit of, if we don't get anything over the weekend, we could see vol continue to relax, because I continue to think that October future is just way overpriced. But they're holding it up.
They are holding it up indeed. And listeners, if you're not hanging out in the pro, then you're missing out on nuggets like Russell telling all of our chatters that he wants to know what to do with all the toilet paper that he's hoarding out there. So these are the nuggets. These are the pearls you're missing if you're not hanging out in our chat during the show, listeners. Mr. Rhoads, what are you going to do with all the toilet paper you've been hoarding, A? And B, what's catching your eye on the vol surface this week?
I don't know. I made my 18-year-old stand in line at Costco for an hour and a half with a big old pallet of it. It's great having teenagers. On the vol surface, what Mark just pointed out with respect to us being in backwardation, that's not quite the case for my buddy VSTOXX, and we'll talk more about VSTOXX in a little while. The October-November relationship for both VIX and VSTOXX, there's about a point between them, but spot VSTOXX is at 20 and a quarter, and we know that our beloved VIX is around 19 or so. So a part of me is just wondering if the October, both the October VSTOXX and VIX contracts are about at the same level. I know when you get a volatility event, you tend to get more juice, as you like to say. I've been stealing that word a lot lately. You get a lot more bang for your buck with VSTOXX rallying. So a part of me thinks if you're worried about weekend volatility, of course, the best trade ever is just keep buying UVIX on Friday and selling it on Monday morning. But if you like the futures markets, I would take a look at maybe buying the October VSTOXX for the weekend and selling the October VIX future for the weekend. If something happens, great. If nothing happens, they're probably not going to experience too much of a loss on having a long and a short exposure to broad-based October/November volatility expectations.
All right, and since you invoked VSTOXX, let's get there now, listeners, for the return of the International Volatility Review.
It's time to explore what's happening in the volatility market beyond our shores. It's time for the International Volatility Review. The International Volatility segment is brought to you by Eurex, home of Euro stocks, VSTOXX, DAX, and the German government bond-based Eurobund, Eurobobble, Euroshots derivatives. Eurex is the leading European derivatives exchange. Learn more about trading VSTOXX futures and options, the European Volatility Benchmark, at www.eurex.com/VSTOXX.
I missed that music, but now it is back, listeners. Time to peer beyond our shores, see what's popping off on the international volatility front. Remember, you can follow along with this yourselves. Just go to eurex.com, EUREX.com. Or if you just want to dive deep, just get a nice screenshot of VSTOXX itself. Just go to stocks.com, STOXX.com. That'll get you there as well. And as Russell alluded to earlier, we are seeing VSTOXX still looking frothy, even if it is coming in. It came off another point today, closed at 20 and a quarter. But you could clearly see back when we were talking about VSTOXX over the summer, there was a pretty wide chasm. It was 5 points at some point between VSTOXX And VIX, of course, we had those kind of surprise European elections playing out over there as well. So there was a lot going on in Europe that wasn't really playing out here, hence that wide berth. These days, not so much. We're seeing them a little over a point between each other right now. In fact, they were less than a point when we kicked off the show, obviously. VIX still trading, so that's coming off a little bit more now. If you want some frame of reference, the low, 12.12 back in December of last year, a 52-week low, of course, even though we did threaten that level a few times earlier this year back in March. I don't think we ever got down to exactly that low, but we got somewhere in the mid-12 range. So we've hit the 12 level a few times. 52-week high. Go out on a limb. See if you could hazard a guess. I'll give you a couple of seconds. When was the 52-week high for VSTOXX? I think you could probably guess. Yes, it was August 5th. 31.16. So VSTOXX, as we've shown before, during the parliamentary election surprises, as on August 5th, it can surprise to the upside when it's feeling its mojo. Mr. Rhoads, I know you've been crunching a lot of VSTOXX out there these days. What's catching your eye in the land of international vol these days, sir?
Sure. You mentioned that VSTOXX is closed. I just want to mention it trades up until, or it's quoted up until 11:30 Chicago time, 12:30 Eastern time, all that kind of stuff. So it has been closed for about an hour or so. VIX was at about a 75-cent discount when they went out. So not too much of a change since that one was closed. It's just very difficult doing apples to apples comparison because of the time difference between the two. Yeah. I have a method where I use 10 a.m. Chicago time as the joint close for the two of them. I love tripping people up. One of my mentors at SIBO loved asking people questions that he knew nobody was going to get the right answer to. What do you think what VSTOXX option do you think has the most open interest right now?
Ooh.
And they have standard expiration. So there's October, November, and December.
Yeah, there's none of the weeklies out there. I'm going to say
they don't have the weekly, but
yeah. I'm going to say November, and I'm going to say 25s.
Okay. Subtract 10.
The 15s?
And go out another month.
These 15 puts?
You nailed it.
Dang.
Almost 70,000. Number 2 is October 14.5 puts.
I thought for sure, given what we have popping off over the next month, I thought for sure some of that would play out in some upside, but wow, none.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. They're just the distribution is most of the downside strikes, very little in the call and all puts, and vice versa. But I found it very interesting that December. I've never seen the biggest open interest in the volatility space in the decades that I've been following it now, where the biggest open interest is not in the front month, let alone in the third month. But somebody's probably betting on a volatility crush into the end of the year. They're probably just thinking that at some point between right now and middle of December, that maybe we're going to finally resolve the election in the U.S. and all that other kind of crap. So it's not a terrible idea trade-wise. There's just so much uncertainty with respect to what's going to happen with the futures, what's going to happen with that market. Do you have a better chance to get into those, et cetera? I know we normally say for moves, you do want to be trading the option that is right in front of your face expiration-wise in the vol space, but I'm pretty sure that this is a bet on the U.S. election working itself out okay. That's the only reason, and that all the volatility of 2024 starts to dissipate as we get into the happy holiday season. So that's the biggest thing. Trade-wise, a couple of big trades. There are always a bunch of big trades. Somebody did a 2-by-1 ratio put spread, and this is well, you know what? This may be where our trade is. Now I'm correcting myself on air. That big open interest in the D15 puts is part of a ratio spread. They've combined them with the 17 puts.
Oh, okay.
That makes a little bit.
I like
more
it a little
sense.
better. A little better.
Yeah. And I don't know the price that they put it on. I should be looking at my big trades in conjunction with the big open interest to
get a read on that. But I am going to investigate that further. I can see that trade traded 27,000 times this past week. I'm going to investigate that trade a little bit further and put it up on my blog this weekend, because it deserves some more investigations instead of me guessing at what's going on there right now.
You're
live
looking
in
for
front
vol
of,
not
front
just
of people
to fall by the end of the year, but explode downward if that's part of a ratio. Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to do some digging while you guys are talking, et cetera.
You know what? VSTOXX low in last December was 12.12. They're betting on a 12.12 repeat this year, I think. What do you think?
12.12, and I know somebody else that would like to see a 12.12.
Sounds like a lot of people wouldn't mind seeing. Wouldn't mind seeing.
I think Mark Sebastian just likes those fun numbers.
I do. Yes. Although I like 12.21 better than 12.12.
I know you do.
Mr. Meatball, I know you're not huge on international vol, but what are your thoughts on size D's 15 puts maybe as a 17-15 ratio put spread in VSTOXX, sir?
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, as there's a lot of things that need to be worked out. But, Russell's point around the U.S. presidential election and volatility would make a total sense to me in terms of, reasons that someone would be playing for some calming there. And with, is there a VVIX for VSTOXX, Russell?
No, they do not have. Yes, there is. I'm sorry. I thought you were asking about ETPs. Yeah, they've got, they have a VSTOXX.
VSTOXX. So I'm guessing with VSTOXX, I'm going to guess VSTOXX is pretty bid. And with VSTOXX pretty bid, you're going to want to have something like a ratio to protect you from a potential volatility crush, like what, because you can be long puts, but if, VSTOXX drops from, let me see where it is.
It's at 106.
If it drops from 106 to 80, those puts are not going to do you a lot of good. And I think that's the potential concern in why you want to use a ratio spread for that play.
So they put this trade on at a credit 43 cents. They sold that. Yeah, they basically sold the 17s and bought the 15s.
Yeah, I like that as a spread. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And the open interest on that is it's even higher than what I just saw on the chart. So there we go.
We see people sell puts outright all the time. They don't get 43-cent credit, let alone doing a ratio and collecting 43 cents. Interesting. Color me intrigued, Mr. Rhoads. Speaking of intrigued, before we get out of here, we have to touch on this virtual focus day, a.k.a.
I was going to bring it up at the end.
Russell Rhoads Day. I got to get to it now because you're doing your best impersonation of me, sir. You are on literally every single session of this day. You're the intro, you're the first panel, you're the second panel. So I'm just going to call it Russell Rhoads Day. Well, what is this?
So what we're going to do in this will be the second year that I've gotten to do this with the great people at UVX. I really, and I think you enjoy working with them as well. I'm waiting for a cupcake or something as a thank you. For nudging them to get more involved in the U.S. market again, because I think there's some opportunity for them here. But the Focus Day, we did this last year in late October, and it's actually a precursor to the UVX, their global conference in late February in Frankfurt that I personally think you should come broadcast live from. But we're gonna spend an hour talking about the SVIX 50 index options, especially the 0 DTE topic. They have been probably the most consistent performing straddles in the little universe of index option markets that have dailies. And the universe that I use for that is DAX, SVIX 50, Russell 2000, NASDAQ 100, and the S&P 500. But the daily SVIX 50 options they've been really great for option sellers, and you haven't gotten run over too badly. That can't say the same thing for the SPX and the NDX over the last couple of months. And then we're going to spend time on VSTOXX, and I bet you we address this big trade that I'm talking about right now as well, where how people are going about using VSTOXX. I have a systematic approach to put on a ratio spread spread that does well when we blow up to the upside. It did fairly well back in early August for us as well. So, and we've got, I think we've got a couple of people from large investment banks. I don't know if they've announced everybody that's going to be there yet, that are going to talk about from an institutional standpoint how they see people using VSTOXX and how they see people using the EuroStoxx 50.
So, listeners, if a whole episode of Russell is not enough for you, how about a whole day of Russell? Then head on over to UVX.com. Look for it. It's called Trading European Volatility Markets, Daily Options in VSTOXX. It's on October 24th. Sign up now. It's all the Dr. VSTOXX you can handle and then some. As we keep on rolling out there into the land of the mothership of VIX options. Is it a banger day for VIX options? The answer, I think it kind of spent itself yesterday. We'll get to that in a second. Today, about exactly 250,000, 251 to be precise on the tape. So not exactly lighting the world on fire. The same can be said for the ADV. 887,000 contracts on the tape right now. That's down 34,000 from this time a week ago. So we had a few tilts at the ADV windmill this week, but not a ton. Let's get out to the top 10 size positions. Once again, for all of you who cling to our top 10 VIX as an indicator, we are still at the 50-50 mark, which is not a level we hit that often. And usually when we hit it, we don't stay here for too long. But now it's 2 weeks in a row, 50-50 calls versus puts, listeners. It cost you 223,000 contracts to break into the top 10 this week. That gets you back to the Nove doubles. Right back to the fun upside, listeners, at number 10. Number 9, 234,000 of the OCK 17 puts. So pick your poison, upside or downside, listeners. Number 8, 240,000 of the OCK 25s. Number 7, 241,000 of the, dare I say it, reasonable OCK 20s, especially compared to the Nove doubles. Number 6, 268,000 of the OCK 19 puts. Number 5, 283,000 of the OCK 15 puts. 15. I don't know. It might be a bit of a bridge too far, but we shall see. I wouldn't mind if those 15s come to play. Number 4, 288,000 of the Nove 35. So 55, a little bit too far out there for your taste. I present to you number 4, 288,000. Nove 35s, listeners. Number 3, 289,000 of the OCK 18 puts. Who would buy those? A madman only. Number 2, 311,000 of the OCK 45s. Man, now we're getting back at it. And the number 1, the big dog out there this week, listeners, in our 50-50 evenly split week, 317,000 of the OCK 16 puts. Any of those strikes, any of those options strike your fancy, listeners? Hit us up. Let us know. And before we get into the rest, listeners, it is time to unleash the beast. That is Dr. VIX once again. Time for a little of Russell's Weekly Rundown.
Now, Russell's Weekly Rundown. Now, Russell's Weekly Rundown.
All right, Mr. Rhoads, I believe you teased us with some put buyers, sir. What you got for us this week?
It did, not surprisingly, and I did not trade the employment number. I would have probably done one of these bad trades. So just letting you know. So starting out early Wednesday, I like this trade somewhat. I hope it's combined with something else. Somebody came in early Wednesday with VIX between kind of like in the 19.5 to 20.25 range. It was all over the place. They sold 1,600 of the October 9th 28 calls, and they did those at prices to between 50 cents and 61 cents. They could cover it right now at 35 cents. The open interest is 1,800. They traded 1,600 of them. It's going to be easy to keep an eye on this one through next Wednesday's settlement. Later on Wednesday, and this is where the put buyers all come in. Kind of funny you said, who in the world would be buying those 18 puts? Because my salvage trade, or my final trade that I don't really like that much, involves doing that, or actually involves selling them.
Only a madman would buy those, sir. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. So later on Wednesday, with VIX at 2036, we had a buyer of 200 of the October 9th 22 puts. They paid $1.67 for those puts, and those puts are $1.67 bid right now. Way to go. And VIX is a $1.36 lower, or $1.18 lower as I look up there. Just keep that in mind for the moment. VIX is at 2057. Yesterday, somebody came in and bought 500 of the October 9th 19 puts, and they paid 22 cents for those. They are 23-cent bid right now. Get out of that trade. Salvage. I'm kidding. I'd leave it on. And then finally, actually the trade that I like this week is that buying the one that is somewhat in the money, because when the trade was put on, there was only 3 cents of time value. So relative to the spot index, but the behavior of VIX is hurting that trade. And then today, this is an exit trade, but I'm not real wild about it. Somebody sold 3,100 of the October 9th 18 puts for 10 cents. This is most definitely a salvage trade. It looks like they paid 48 cents for those last week, at some point last week. Honestly, I'd leave it on. I'd think about Monday to exit it. I just at this point, and it's real easy for me to say that because they did the trade earlier this morning when VIX was in the 20s. But they often talk about if you've got a position, let's say you sold some options, and it's a nickel offer right now. And we used to use at the Options Institute, we'd say, well, would you be willing to buy that option at a nickel right now, and if you weren't willing to buy that option outright, or you wouldn't be willing to sell that option, at a nickel, then you would it'd say, all right, well, just go ahead and get out and take the nickel. In this case, I just feel like you might have a better exit opportunity on Monday. And I thought that when I wrote it up a couple hours ago. So I'm not real wild about giving up on this trade at a point of where you're just taking 10 cents in. I'm sure somebody's somewhat angry. Man, I have caught myself from using bad language today, like multiple times. Somebody's very angry about this trade not working out, so they just threw in the towel out of anger. Nothing like the anger and revenge trades for profitability.
I find that's a good path to fame and fortune, sir. The anger and revenge.
Yeah, as covering up losses and going to jail. That's the only way that you're going to get famous trading like that.
All right, let's keep rolling. Let's see what's trading out here in VIX proper, shall we, listeners? Like we said, today, not exactly lighting the world on fire. It's up to 260 right now. The big dog right now, 28,000 of the OCC 30s, followed by number 2, 21,000 of the OCC 28s, and 16,000 of the OCC 26s. Number 4, 14,000 of the OCC 20s. It's an OCC call palooza. Number 5, about 11,000 of the OCC 22s. But all in all, heck of a lot of nothing on the tape today, listeners. Yesterday, though. Yesterday was the banger of the week. Well, close to it. The Tuesday did manage to surpass it, but a banger day nonetheless. 1.27 million contracts on the tape yesterday, so lighting the world on fire yesterday. The big dog, 183,000 of the OCC 27s, followed by 168,000 of the OCC 29s. You'll know if you listened to the option block yesterday, we broke down that vertical. That was a size vertical. Went up at least 150, 160,000 times. Yesterday, listeners. It was the OCC 2729. Paper bought it about 157,000 times to start for 12 cents. And we thought this kind of a weird one. You don't see verticals in VIX usually that tight. If you do, mechanically, they're difficult to take off. If you get a nice surge in VIX, and good luck selling that for your $2. So it was a weird one. Didn't hate the level, but it was just kind of a weird one. I couldn't really make my mind up about it. I didn't really love it, though. So I thought we'd put it out to you folks as the ultimate arbiter is the end of the day. 12 cents, OCC 2729. Are you buying or are you selling? And you folks wanted to sell it. 58.3% said you don't want to touch that thing. Only 41.7% said you want to buy it. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one. Clearly it doesn't resonate with you folks either. But either way, that was number 1 out there yesterday by a country mile. Number 3 out there yesterday was the OCC 35s, 105,000 of those. Number 4, 102,000 of the OCC 45s. Looks like maybe some vertical or maybe some roll action because it probably was closing on the 45s. And then 50,000 on the D17 puts. And then out to Wednesday, another light day, hence our ADV coming in, 482 on the tape. The big dog, 67,000 of the OCC 18 puts. Again, only a madman would own such things, I say, as I am sitting on a bunch of them myself. Number 2, 29,000 of the OCC 17 puts. Those were closing. Number 3, 27,000 of the OCC 28s. Number 4, 23,000 of the OCC 19 puts. And rounding out the top 5, 19K of the OCC 20s. Tuesday was indeed the banger day of the week, 1.33 million, just managing to edge out yesterday. The big dog, 121,000 of the OCK 17 puts. So that's the strike of the week out there. Number 2, 120,000 of the Feb 42 halves. Those were opening, so somebody's coming to play in the Feb. 90,000 for number 3 of the Dees 42 halves. So are they rolling from Dees to Feb already? If so, it looks like a house money roll because they're doing 30,000 more on the second leg. You don't usually see that unless you're sitting on some house money, listeners. Number 4, 64,000 of the OCK 20s, and number 5, 43,000 of the NOV 17 puts. Monday, another meager start to the week, 398,000 contracts on the tape. The big dog, 28K of the OCK 17 puts, followed by number 2, 26,000 of the OCK 30s. Number 3, 25,000 of the OCK 18 puts. Again, only madmen rush in there, listeners. Number 4, 23,000 of the OCK 40s. And number 5, on a light Monday, 22,000 of the OCK 22s. Mr. Meatball, we were kind of vacillating all over the place on the vol front this week. We're whipsawing, we're moving up, we're moving down. We got some weird prints out there. Anything catching your eye out there in VIX options this week, sir?
Well, obviously, Thursday was a really busy day. On top of that, huge call spread. Big buyer of the December 17 puts with the December with tied to futures, which I thought was kind of interesting. You had some really active trading on the November 55 calls. Those got a bunch of action. And that was kind of the most interesting trades from Thursday. Friday, today has been real slow. Biggest trade of the day is only 5,000 contracts, seller of the November 17 puts. Don't know if I love that trade. And you've got some OCK call buyers that are likely playing the weekend. And I'm just pulling up. That was really it. Wednesday, nothing really special. A little bit of October playing. That's about it there. And then Tuesday, again, no huge prints, but you did have some more October call spread buying. The 20-30 call spread and the 21-28. And then Monday, it was, again, Monday was another busy day in October, buying the 20-30 call spread, buying the 22-40 call spread on the cheap. So lots of near data hedging flying around here in the volatility index over the last week.
Lots of weird paper, including that vertical. Mr. Rhoads, do you love that vertical, 27.29 in October for 12 cents? And then we'll get out to your favorites out there, the twins, SVIX and UVIX. SVIX at a 25, listeners, when we kicked off the show. Puts it down a little over 2, about 2.1 points. Obviously, SVIX dipped a little lower this week. Let's see, how low did we get this week? We got down to a little bit north of 24, looks like about 24.30. That was yesterday. So obviously a tough week for SVIX, at least to the upside, but getting some of that back now. Also, it's been every day's been a tough day for a while on the volume front. 5,500 contracts on the tape today. That compares to an ADV of only 6,500. That's down another 2,300 this week. So SVIX options volume has just fallen off a cliff over the last 3 weeks to a month. I mean, it was threatening 20K not too long ago. Now it's down another 2,300. It's giving up 2,000 contracts a week pretty much. At this point, it'll be back to 50 contracts a day pretty soon. It's just nobody wants to trade SVIX options right now, which is interesting because the underlying is moving a bit, but no joy out there. UVIX right now, by the way, the size position in SVIX right now, the Jan 36s, 1,800 of those bad boys. So interesting. UVIX 5.5 up about 0.8 of a point. Doing a little bit better on the volume front today. 30,000 contracts on the tape today. The ADV is 31,000. That's actually up 1,000 on the week. So UVIX managing to hold on to some of its ill-gotten gains while SVIX continues to take it on the chin. Let's see. Right now, what's lighting it up out there today in SVIX? It's the 5.5 puts expiring today. People love this trade, nearly 8,000. People love going straight to the fire on expiration day in UVIX. They just love rolling them bones. Followed by number 2, 2,000 of the 5.5 calls expiring today. if past is prologue, but the put people will probably be happier. But you never know these days. And then 1,700 of the 5.5 puts expiring next week. Yeah, they just love that straight to the fire trade in UVIX. In terms of top positions, it's the OCK5s expiring monthlies. 12,000 of those bad boys out there right now. Mr. Rhoads, 3 things for you. OCK 27.29 for 12 cents. You love it, or mechanically does it not really make much sense? And then SVIX and UVIX was catching your eye, sir.
I like the October trade. I like things like that are a little bit up in the 20s that that you don't have to worry about from day to day. And I think that one's probably gonna do what it's supposed to do if they get the proper move. With respect to you, and I'm trying to get quickly into. I did some work on UVIX, and I know we're coming up against the time, so I'll just skip to that very quickly. Every week, I want to come back here and tell you guys that I tried something with UVIX, and so last week, I always sit here and run my mouth, and I said, well, I've been buying the UVIX kind of when we finish this program. And then I sell it on the open on Monday because it looks like it's been climbing higher into the weekends. Well, I went back and I looked at 1 p.m. Central as my entry time as opposed to the close. And you know what I found? Not a gosh darn thing.
Really?
In fact, if you entered the trade consistently at 1 p.m. Central instead of on the close, your average profit is 0.04%. Remember, your average profit is like 0.2% or something like that if you use the closing price. But I'm experimenting around because I feel like there's got to be a way to improve on this. It's fine the way it is, and it's fine, especially if you're got short volatility positions on and you'd like something. You don't want to start your week off with a whole buttload of pain when if we get a volatility event over the weekend. So it makes a lot of sense on a behavioral and a quantitative standpoint. I just really do feel like there's got to be a way I can improve on this. And I've done that. I've looked at selling calls against it on Monday morning, and then it went down more than the call premium. I'm still playing around with it because I think we can do better with this. On SVIX, I've got a full position right now. I've been chipping back into it. But for a quarter of the position, I'm short the October 18th, the standard 25 calls, and I sold those for $1.20. It's $1.30 bid now, so guess I'm okay with that. But I did sell some calls against my SVIX. Maybe buy them back on Monday morning. Maybe selling SVIX calls and buying them back on Monday morning if we get a volatility event that puts UVIX higher. Maybe that's a different way to go about playing a weekend volatility spike. There's just so much. I was on a program earlier, and it's just there's so much you can do and so many ideas. We got a lifetime of ideas with what we can do with all of these markets. And VIX by itself, you probably have a lifetime of ideas of how you could go about trading it.
An embarrassment of riches, sir, as we go out to the Southern Volatility Mecca, where he has been busy diving deep into the SVIX market these days, as well with his latest product over there at the land of the pit. Mr. Meatball, sir, what's catching your eye in the twins of SVIX and UVIX, sir?
Yeah, I mean, this choppy market and the VIX in kind of perpetual backwardation as we head toward with Israel has really put a damper on SVIX and put a little bit of a win behind UVIX. I keep waiting for them to announce a reverse split because UVIX would be so much fun if it was $55 instead of $5.50. Maybe Russell wouldn't like that as much, but there is some decent UVIX option volume that's trading today. That's been trading this week. Today, you've got some real active stuff expiring today. They're the 550 puts, the 5.5 puts have been flying off the shelves, and but outside of that, UVIX seems to really heat up the day of expiration. The other trades that we're seeing is stuff for next week. A little bit of calls and puts trading on kind of both sides. So they're kind of trading it both ways right now. Pretty interesting. but nothing really in particular. And yeah, SVIX, the stock just kind of seems to be waffling about. And with the structure of VIX and it being in kind of this backwardation, it is going to kind of have a tough time going up. And that is what you're seeing out of SVIX. Interesting, they're really coming for the implied volatility of the options today, despite the lack of really any volume here.
Yeah, people can't get enough of those at the money puts in UVIX. That's the trade du jour out there. Trading a whopping 8 cents right now, listeners. So if you want to get in while the getting's good, there you go. 8 cents. Maybe you want to sell them for 6 if you're a really crazy person. Let's round out the last couple of victims here, then we'll get to the crystal ball for this week. UVXY 28 even as we kicked off the show and still hanging out there right now, up a little over 3, about 3.1 points from where it was this time a week ago. Doing decent volume, 47,000 contracts on the tape. UVXY not immune to the ADV erosion that's going on out there as well. 79,000 a day now. That's down 1,000 this week, and it's down quite a bit from close to 100K it was not too long ago. In terms of size positions, you're looking at pre-split adjusted stuff. The only thing that's out there really are the, or I should say post-split adjusted. 6,500 of the NOV 30s is really the big boy, which kind of close to the money right now. And then VXX 5380 up a little over 4, about 4.3 points on the week. 23,000 contracts on the tape today against an ADV of 30K. That's also coming in this week, down about 2,000. And the big dog out there, 5,400 of the 66 calls expiring today. Well, good luck with those. I hate to laugh, but we've all been there, listeners. They're probably buying those at past its prologue. And, I don't know, 12 points in a couple of hours. We've seen crazier things, I suppose, but that's probably not good for society if we're popping 12 points in VXX before the end of the day. But I digress. Mr. Rhoads, anything catching your eye in the lands of VXX or UVXY, sir?
No. I mean, you guys know. I almost feel like you should just skip me on that question. Because they're markets I don't pay a whole lot of attention
I try to be inclusive. I know we have a bunch of UVXY fans out there who are like, why don't you talk the whole show about UVXY? It's so amazing. So I try to at least tip my cap to them at the end of the show. Mr. Meatball, anything to add on UVXY or your new favorite? I know you've been playing in a little VXX, sir.
Yeah, UVXY is down about 80 cents today. VXX down, marginally as well. Call it a buck. They both have had a nice little run. Kind of, when SVIX is rallying, these are falling. These are rallying, and they're getting pretty peaky though.
Pretty peaky. I like that. That's a good word for it. By the way, I did, just to add to the fun, I did dive in on some of those UVIX 5-half puts. So we'll see how they play out. We'll play those off on Options Oddities in a little bit, listeners. Got to have some of the fun here on the show as well. Speaking of fun, it's that time, listeners. It is time for the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the crystal ball. We kicked off the show. VIX was at about a 19 even. And as we're coming to the end of the show, we're seeing things getting a little bit frothier out there. We're a little bit north of 19.5. We're at about a 1965, which actually puts us away from everyone. Looking here, we didn't have a single 19 handle on the board this week, listeners. It was myself, it was the Meatball, and it was Mr. Rhoads last week. Mr. Rhoads is at a 14.99, so he was playing the low card. Mr. Meatball in the middle, palindromically appropriate at 15.51. I was playing the high card at 16 double, but no joy for any of us. I guess I was the closest. I was still over 3 points away, so no joy for any of us this week. So we'll go in order of lowest to highest. How about that? So Mr. Rhoads, you get to go first. What are you feeling for this time next week, sir?
For this time next week, so what do we get? Well, next week we've got a couple of things I'm really looking forward to next week. We've got the FOMC meeting minutes from the September 18th meeting. I can't wait to hear what they said. We've got CPI and PPI, and I'm still on board with I don't think inflation is completely gone, and at some point we're going to get surprised by it. So I'm going to say 2024. With the thought that we're going to see some inflationary numbers next week.
We're going to see a little bit of juice. Mr. Meatball, where are you going on the palindrome scale, sir?
Well, to Russell's point, with the really strong jobs number, I think this CPI number becomes a lot more important now, because if it comes in a little bit hot, markets are going to be really unhappy. For right now, good news appears to be good news. But we start getting some, inflation is no longer dropping. You could see some action. My personal belief, though, is the VIX is so overbought that it does need to pull back. What was Russell's guess?
This year, 2024.
2024, yes.
2024? All right, yeah. I'm going to go with, as I said, the election base case is about 16. So I'm going to go 1661. I'm giving you tons of room.
Just started typing 1661, and I already wrote my answer before either of you went. I wrote down a American appropriate 1765. So that's your market for this week, listeners. Mr. Rhoads going to the upside, Mr. Meatball going to the palindromic dark side, and myself hanging out at a pro-America, not quite 1776, but a 1765. All right. That music means we have come to the end of another volatility sojourn for this week. If you're hanging out in the pro, just relax. I'll be back in a little bit with the Rock Lobster to break down the week that was from an unusual activity perspective. We'll see how those UVIX puts work out. All sorts of fun going on out there on Options Oddities. If you want to join us, only one place to go. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. And Mr. Rhoads, once more, if they want to learn more about what we're calling around the show here a Russell Rhoads Day, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, you guys tweeted it and I retweeted it. So there's a link out there on the Twitter right now. I think if you Google UVX Focus Day, you'll have no problem whatsoever seeing what we're going to talk about. In fact, I think if you do that, you can see what we did last year as well. I'm sure that nothing ever disappears. That's you can never get those pictures off the internet. So I have a funny feeling you could actually see what we said last year about the VSTOXX and the single day options or the daily index options as well. And like I said, I'm going to do a bunch of digging on that 1x2 that I saw in VSTOXX going out to December. I think they've been scalping around it. I'm going down a rabbit hole on this one. So on my Substack tomorrow, that should go out tomorrow morning, I'll have a full guesstimate / analysis of what I think that trade is all about.
You have opened up a can of worms for yourself.
I have.
In the meantime, listeners, if a day of nonstop Russell sounds as intriguing to you as it does to me, then check it out. Trading European Volatility Markets, Daily Options, and VSTOXX. You can find it over there. Eurex.com, EUREX.com. It's coming up on October 24th. I can already see in our chat a lot of folks are intrigued. They want to check it out. So mark your calendars for October 24th. Be there or be square, as the cool kids say, listeners. And then going out to the Southern Volatility Mecca, Mr. Meatball, sir, if folks want to talk SVIX or anything else, Vol, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, come to optionpit.com and read all of our free content we put out. And follow me on Twitter at OptionPit. And we got a nice YouTube channel. I'm starting to put out stock analysis just about every day. Come and check it out.
Nothing's ever going to beat the Andrew pulling a rock or pulling the stump montage you had there. That one.
No, that is a great.
That's worth the price of admission right there. Listen, what is your? I know your Option Pit on Twitter. What's your YouTube handle again?
At Option Pit.
Option Pit on YouTube as well.
Option Pit.
There you go. Option Pit on all the platforms, listeners. Check out Andrew pulling up stumps. It's gold with a fun, jaunty tune over there. That's going to do it for us on the on-demand side. Thank you for joining us this week, listeners. Again, we'll be back in a little bit with the pro folks for Options Oddities. Then we're off for the weekend. It's been another crazy, tumultuous week. We mean it when we say it every week, listeners. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you back here next week, another episode of Volatility Views.
The International Volatility segment is brought to you by Eurex, home of Euro stocks, VSTOXX, DAX, and the German government bond-based Eurobund, Eurobobble, Euroshots derivatives. Eurex is the leading European derivatives exchange. Learn more about trading VSTOXX futures and options, the European volatility benchmark, at www.eurex.com/VSTOXX. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.